This is HUBCP Lounge, so welcome and thanks so much for watching this video. And this is a first for us because we're actually on a client site, and this is almost a first for you, James, because this is I guess it's the first time we've actually shot at your new premises in Northampton, right?
Still building out a lot of what's going on here, so there's still quite a lot of construction going on. We've told them to be quiet for today, so hopefully won't be too much interruption.
But it's just, James, this is awesome on so many levels. And the first level, because having met you a year and a half ago, when we were over at your old place, and just to now, and you know, we've become friends, and you know, you've been telling me about what the business has been doing and stuff like that. So, huge congratulations for being able to just look at this and go, this is now our gaff. I mean, that really shows the story, the journey of growth, which we're going to hear about in a moment. And I guess the second thing is just, you know, this is obviously a dream. It must be. Okay, first question: is this what you had in your head when you started the business, that we'd be sat with this behind us?
I think so. I'm not sure. I don't know if we had it really specifically in our head what we started, but I know we started in a really dingy kind of, you know, just a bit of a building. We're sharing an office with somebody else. We had a point that we talked about before, I think, where we used the toilets as part of offices because we didn't have any space. And we've had, I think, 3 or 4 buildings now over time, and everyone's been kind of a step up. And the last building we went to was like, wow, you know, this is you know, this is what we could aspire to. It's a proper. We've got offices, we've got reception. It's like a, you know, and then this has kind of just taken that to another level.
Yeah. Hashtag another level. So to our lovely viewers and our fantastic followers of HUBCP, James and James. What is James and James? What do you guys do? Obviously, your name is James Hyde, and that's, you know, a big part of the story here. But tell us about James and James.
So we started with the other James. Long story of not wanting to get a job, being unemployed for a bit, having a sort of apprenticeship with another entrepreneur for a bit, and basically had to earn a living. So I got a job at a health food company shipping honey, part-time, something to do to pay the bills. And we got into the kind of online retail, and we were trying to fulfill that product through a third party, and the quality of how it was being done, it was all being done on paper. There was difficulty in knowing what was in stock and what wasn't, because of the delay in the data coming back from sort of spreadsheets being emailed backwards and forwards. It was just quite hard. We looked around the industry and went, look, you know, someone must do this better. And we found companies that had proper IT systems for managing all this, but they were still pushing basically in Excel or CSV files backwards and forwards every couple of hours. So there's this real disconnect in data. And we thought, well, you know, you buy online. We always have this analogy: you're on the train, you look through, you know, you buy it, and it says there, purchase complete. So if you can do that on a train, why is it that we have to wait 2 hours to be able to talk to our warehouse? It doesn't make sense. So we originally wanted to start with just a software platform to try and change the way that fulfillment, e-commerce fulfillment specifically, was done, because the logistics industry is we have the joke about sort of brown carpets and beige walls, but it is a little bit, logistics has grown into, can you do online? Yeah, okay, you know, we'll have a go at that, but it's not really grown up as the reason for them existing. So we started a company just to do online fulfillment, just do e-commerce fulfillment, with a view of just completely changing the way that the industry works in doing that.
So when we get into that bit, I've got to ask the question, honey. Why honey, James? What was the big thinking with honey?
It was another company. It was just a part-time job at someone else's business. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we've not uncovered
they were our first client, and they're still a client with us now 10 years later.
Okay.
So there's another success story, you know, for them. But you know, we've grown then building it and got bigger and bigger as we've gone, and we're now finally getting to that point 10 years later where we're actually starting to develop more around the technology and potentially go back to the first model, which was be a technology company, not necessarily an operations company.
Now that is really interesting. Let's get into the technology itself. You are an engineer by, that was your degree, right?
You're manufacturing engineer.
So you're a clever guy, right? Okay, you're a clever guy, James. Let's just get that out there. Was this a case of then bringing that sort of engineering thinking?
So the logistics industry was looking at, you know, we do logistics, we do pallet freight and everything else. How do we ship online? And they're trying to do it really using the same methods and techniques. And actually, in a way, we were slightly naive coming into the market because we knew nothing about the industry or how it should work. But what we did know was how kind of engineering processes and manufacturing processes are built up from scratch. So we kind of took the approach of, well, we know what we want to deliver and we know where it starts. So how do we engineer a process that just, you know, works? And how do we engineer the software? And so this is a really big part. Is not just having tech. It's how do you have the technology that encompasses the right processes. So you've got technology and process working together sort of in harmony, and that was the big, I think still really big differentiator of what we do, is we don't just buy someone else's tech. You know, we've got developers sit in the same building as the process.
Yeah.
So whereas tech companies are building what they think is the right idea, and the operating companies are trying to work within the confines of the technology,
Yeah.
we're kind of building both process and tech together, so we have a lot more control over the way we do things.
So looking at your website then, as I was just before today, that's why something that interesting that I picked out was that engineered to precision.
Yeah.
So I guess therefore this is a massive part of making sure that this is just a beautifully seamless.
Yeah, and
delivery.
that goes to the whole thing, you know, we've got operations in the US, we've got a site in New Zealand, that when we pack an order here or we pack an order in the US, they both have to go out exactly the same process, you know, and the same quality and everything, the same standard, and it's only by having the sort of technology controlling a process that's then sort of monitored that you can actually make sure you've got that consistency.
Yeah.
It's not reliant on people knowing or remembering, it's based on people being trained to use a particular process and system.
Right, and you, let's just go back to, you know, when you started. How many people do you employ now?
200, our 200th employee, it's more than
Wow.
200 now, but our 200th employee was last month.
Wow, and again, kind of the nostalgia of being behind your new place that you're joining into, that you're going to be moving into. When you look at the size that you've grown, what are some of the things that you look back on and you go, wow, that was a big challenge, or that was a big opportunity, or we did pretty well actually dealing with that? Are there any things that really jump out when you think about the growth that you've been over the past few years?
It's you see it gradually. So although you know, obviously, when you look at where we are today and then look at the building room before the one we're in now, there's a huge difference in where we are. But you don't, being in it every day, you don't see it that much.
Yeah.
It kind of creeps up gradually. On
Really?
You. Yeah, in a way. And I think this is the first building we've had, which is really, you know, you walk in and it just hits you.
It does.
It's so bright green. It's so sort of fluorescent and new that it's difficult for it to ignore it. So.
The kind of growth that I mentioned earlier, you are in the fast track 100. So you've been, how many years have you been in that now?
We were in it 1 year.
Yeah.
And then just due to lots of ways we were restructuring the business, we missed the year last year.
Yeah.
But I think next year, given COVID and the impact that's had, it'll probably be, I'd have some fair confidence being back on it again.
Yeah, I'll come to that because COVID has actually been a good thing for you guys in many ways. So that'd be interesting to look into
some
that.
really challenging operationally, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to think, oh, you know, it's increased revenue, it's fantastic. You know, there's a lot of challenges having that number of people trying to keep safe on a site. So,
But Financial Times, 1,000 fastest growing companies in Europe. I mean, wow, that's pretty awesome. So you are in some pretty well recognised lists of fast growth companies. So let's just go to, let's go to COVID then, because that has been another spurt for you, hasn't it? In terms of what's done for your business.
Saw March just gone, sort of the first month of lockdown was the busiest month we've ever had. So it was bigger than Christmas 2019.
Wow.
And it was bigger than, I think it was, almost what we were considering Christmas 2020 to look like. So now our Christmas 2020 budget has gone up again. I think we had another 50% to it. And there's for us actually, there's a huge amount of uncertainty of what's coming this Christmas, because we don't know how much people are going to buy online, whether they're going to start earlier, whether people still want to go out to the shops. And so it's the kind of the biggest Christmas we're ever going to have, but it's also the Christmas where we've just no idea really what volume's going to come in on what days.
Really, it really is a massive unknown.
It's a massive unknown. So we're plan for what you can, but there's just so much unknown in it this year that it's, I think the same for every business, isn't it? There's just a lot of unknowns about Brexit as well.
Have you seen many retailers now starting to shut down or limit their physical locations to now go far more, have you seen a massive seismic shift in that?
There's definitely been more inquiries through that process. We had one company that was inquiring with us and we're kind of going through the proposal process, and they'd just secured some investment to take their business online. And then COVID happened, and their kind of 3-year online business plan became a 3-week online business plan, because all of their other retail was through their own physical stores, and they had to close. So that was a kind of 100% of their business just went from retail to online in like 3 weeks. So there's been some real success stories of companies making that transition. And I think we're still seeing companies that are still getting into that transition of, they've got an online store, but are they really promoting it the best they can? And I think the longer it goes on, the more and more people are being forced to make a stronger transition to it.
Yeah. Now you have an American outfit. You are also based in New Zealand.
Yeah, we have a small operation in New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a big question here, James, just because I'm really interested in this. I think especially with everything that's happening with the state of play in America at the moment. Of course, we have the elections coming up November the 3rd. But what has it been like doing business in America?
Well, with COVID, it's been a real challenge because we're trying to hire new people, we're trying to do training, and of course, flying to America at the moment I think it is technically possible again now, but it's really hard with the 2-week quarantine at each end and everything else. So I was going to go to America in April, and I was just about to get on a plane before the lockdown. I was like, shall I just, if I go out 2 days, I could get there and get back and be just there before it really gets any worse. And then I kind of put it off a week, and then that's it. It'll probably be another year or next year now till I get to go.
So you have a physical presence there. You have people
we do,
on the ground. Wow.
Yeah. We've got our own site there. We just Trump's changed a lot of the rules and regulations on postage to make it more expensive for overseas providers to use USPS, which has been fantastic for business in a way, because it's so much more expensive to ship from the UK to the US that we're seeing a lot of clients now saying, can I please store stuff in bulk in the US and ship there?
Really?
So our US site has grown 100% in the last 3 months, just from all the business that was probably UK business just now moving out there to sort of cut the cost of postage down.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of political things that kind of you don't expect necessarily to be impacting the world of commerce.
No, political things that Donald Trump's gone and done that's caused problems. Okay.
There's a few of them.
Anyway, we're politically neutral here, so we won't go into that. But anyway, so in terms of let's get back to America.
Yeah.
I'm just what is it like to do business in America? What was it like to set up the business?
Setting it up's hard. I don't think we really thought about the kind of cultural differences. So we've been in America, I think, 5 years now, and it's been a very, very slow burn. We put out a site there really servicing UK clients. We're still, most of the business is servicing European and international clients, not necessarily domestic US. And it has been real challenging. Hiring people, the whole culture of employment out there is just totally different from
the
UK.
Really?
Yeah, people don't expect much holiday, but the pay's much higher. And then you've got the healthcare and insurance that just makes it like 20% more expensive to hire anyone for anything. So very different kind of economic landscape to the UK.
Yeah, and New Zealand?
Let's say less about that to some extent. And most of our experience from New Zealand has been dealt with dealing with the New Zealand Post, their national provider. Okay. And imagine what it's like dealing with the sort of pre-privatised Royal Mail. It's quite hard just getting anything to go anywhere. It's just we had like 4 management restructures, I think, in the 6 years that we've talked to them. So it's been quite tough.
Yeah. So James, another awesome thing that's happened with everything that's been happening in your business is the fact you raised a load of cash.
We did, yeah.
So what is it, 11.5, 12 million? What was it?
It was 11.6, I think. I can't remember.
Wow.
Probably got that wrong, but
Okay.
it's about that. Should know.
You should know, but don't worry, we'll let you on. So you've raised a hell of a lot of cash from an awesome, what do we call them? Venture?
Private equity.
Private equity.
LGC.
LGC, yeah. So
LGC.
You've got a great backer behind you, great funder. So why have you raised so much money? What is going to happen now then with the business?
There's a couple of things. We've kind of, and this goes back to something before we talked about the sort of technology part before. So maybe we just cover that a little bit. So we've started this company with the view of being a technology business to create software.
Yep.
We ended up, because people found it easier to buy the whole service, being an operational company, which is why we've got this sort of big building now. We do all the operations. But the view, we're now at that point where we're kind of getting the technology so we can license it to other companies and let other people use the way we pick and pack. So we built the process, we built this kind of technology around the process. How do we then license that out, get other people using it, have multiple warehouses in different countries that all can interact with each other through the cloud? So that's the kind of vision we started with. We're now kind of, it's like digression in 10 years, but good growth, getting back to that vision. And so some of the investment was about getting expertise into the company to help us really realise that vision. So we've got this building, which is kind of the showroom now. Yep. This is what it will look like. This is how it should look. This is what we always dreamed of. And it's about then taking that and then working out how we can grow that more internationally. So adding in more European sites and then licensing to other retailers that might want to use this platform. A bit like Ocado do now with their platform. They built basically the automated showroom for the Ocado model, and they're now licensing that out to other companies.
I can't stop smiling. So you're now saying that there could be numerous James and Jameses now popping up around the world, around
Europe.
Well,
there's already two.
There's already
three. Yeah, so there's 2 or 3 already.
The rate at which they now pop up could really start to...
We'd certainly like to increase that. It's probably a sort of 2-3 year journey, and again, that works well for the investors. They've got kind of a 5-year horizon they're working to try and deliver that next step.
Yeah,
in
okay.
Sort of James and James journey.
And talking of delivering, I always love it when you can look on a firm's website and straight away you just get why they do what they do. And there's 2 very cool words that you used on your website. Right at the beginning it said delight delivered. Now, of course, I have an idea of what that means, but it's always better to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So delight delivered.
So we've gone through lots of different things with our values and everything over the years. We keep changing them. It's really hard to articulate the crux of what it is in your company. And I've really struggled to articulate over the years, what it is that I think is special about the way we work, not just what we do. So we come up with the 3 values: challenge, create, deliver. And that's to challenge the industry to not just do the same as every other provider out there.
Yeah.
Create these great processes and systems and technology that go along with it. And then the deliver part is, as you say, it's about delight delivered. So it's easy for us to talk about our customers being retailers. We're selling our service to a retailer, but actually we're really selling it to not selling it, but to the end customer. And it's getting that jiffy bag or that box to turn up looking pristine, well packed, the labels on straight, and then the kind of tracking and returns process. We build some different portals around that end customers can use to help return their parcel. And to me, if you get that delight, the only time a retailer gets to touch, an end customer gets to actually touch the retailer, as it were, that physical thing you get in a shop, the only time that happens is on their doorstep.
Yeah.
And so delight delivered for me is that, how do we take that delight you might get from going, say, to the Apple store and seeing all the products, and how do you get that delivered through someone's letterbox? Wow,
that's really cool. Very compelling. So let's go to we've mentioned numerous times, I've mentioned numerous times about the awesome growth journey that you've been on, but more about you now, okay? So, you mentioned it all started with honey.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward to now, in terms of, again, we keep on looking behind and where we're sat. How have you found going from being a rookie founder, let's say?
Yeah,
it's fair to say, isn't it?
Second startup, technically. The first one, let's say less about this one, shall we?
So a rookie founder to now over 200 people, a huge premises, locations in other international countries. How does it feel? What's the journey that you've been on? How does it feel to go from founder to now to
a challenging
to a grown up? Full grown up, let's say that.
Full grown up.
Yeah.
Not sure we're there yet. It's definitely been a challenge, and I think a lot of that is, and someone said there's a great book on how to be a CEO, and it talks about the fact that you start a job where you're doing everything. You're literally doing the sales, you're fixing the printer, you're trying to get the internet to work, you're literally doing every single part, invoicing everything within the company. And then you go into this job where you start then managing a couple of other people to do it for you, and that's mostly about kind of delegation of task. And then you start to get further and further away until your job really is explaining the vision, and we'll come back to that. I think it's a really interesting part. How do you explain the vision to other people and you're not really doing anything?
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, so you're changing your job role from the doer of everything to the doer of nothing. And you're meant to be able to do that, which is generally quite a lot of work as a CEO. You're doing sort of 50, 60-hour weeks whilst learning how to do it. Because no one teaches you. You don't go to CEO school and they teach you what that looks like, and you don't get a lot of training or on-the-job training. There's not someone above you that's done the job before that you're learning from. We've got chairman now, so that's quite that's great. And we've had some other expertise I've lent on, but there isn't someone there to take you through the process. So you're kind of learning whilst doing, but kind of getting it wrong a lot while you go along the way as that learning.
And that's cool, right? Getting it along, don't they say it's through failure? I can't think of a better word to say than that. But learning from your mistakes, actually you grow and you learn.
And I think I always struggle because I academically was quite good at school.
Yeah.
So you probably noted earlier, that I didn't generally get many things, didn't fail at many things academically, and so that whole concept of being bad at something and having to learn from it, I found that I think quite challenging, that it didn't come naturally. That wasn't something you could just click your fingers and just be the CEO and do this next part of the job. So that's been a real kind of learning journey, kind of emotionally and physically, about actually what do you do.
So that's a really interesting point, because until then, everything you've done, you would, if you wanted to go learn, you would get the textbook.
Yeah, you get the textbook.
You start to learn the theory and apply the theory. Yeah, so all of a sudden now
you do the test results, you get the marks, and that's it. You're done. Was this? There are some. I have found eventually some really great insights, actually from other CEOs, not textbooks. Other CEOs with their kind of life stories, and that really helped. But yeah, it's tough that you have to learn on the job, and you're learning on the job while doing the job. You're not the apprentice anymore. You're expected to perform.
Is it as enjoyable now as it was when you first started, or is it yes but completely different? You're not really comparing like for like.
It's totally different. I think there's stages. So for me, the first couple of years is probably the most enjoyable because you're literally doing everything and everything's new. You can change stuff quickly. You can try stuff out. It's really entrepreneurial. Then you go through that middle phase where everything's a slight problem. Everything's really difficult. You're kind of dealing with, answering the phone whilst trying to deal with strategy, and it's harder.
So if you now think of where you were when you started the business to where you are now, as a grown up, would you say it's just as enjoyable, or would you say it's completely different? Or is it just you can't
It's
compare
totally
it?
different. It's totally different. But I think the first couple of years are kind of the most enjoyable because that's the really entrepreneurial bit. You get your hands dirty. You can change stuff really quickly, and it doesn't. You can just iterate stuff really fast. And then the middle bit's kind of where things start to go. Oh, you're trying to deal with the phone. You're trying to do strategy. You're trying to manage people. You're still learning what you're meant to be doing. It kind of gets to that point. I think once you get past 20 people, it's just harder to manage.
Yeah.
And then for me, like once you get past the 100 mark, it starts to become easy. You start hiring great people and that just know the management, just can do that stuff, and it gets more. So I'm finding now I'm getting to that point of really enjoying it, probably more than I did 2 or 3 years ago even.
Really?
Yeah, just because you start to really focus on the time where you're doing things you enjoy and doing more.
So how are you growing as a leader? What are you doing to enable you now to maybe read that textbook, or if one such?
So I'm doing a professional diploma in coaching. So
okay,
I can help others
cool.
on their journeys through through their personal lives and through their work lives to help them deliver more for the business in a way, but deliver more from what they want from the job. And I think if you work on yourself as far as what do you want from work, then it actually makes you work better. So it's kind of you can't really look at one without the other.
Now you're an engineer, so am I right in saying black and white?
Yeah, exactly. So this has been a big.
So
this is a learning
I'm thinking
curve.
in coaching. Yeah. This is studying people. People are complex. People are unpredictable. Yeah. How are you finding?
So that's probably the biggest learning curve that's probably made that kind of middle years. That kind of why is this so hard? Like, we talked just earlier about vision. You get a vision in your head as an entrepreneur, and you just know that's what I want to achieve. This is how it's going to look, and then you tell 3 other people, right, this is what we're doing, and they go away and they come back and it's like, it's kind of what I meant, but let me just explain it once more, and you realise that as much as you try and write the vision down at your head as to what you think it means, to really get people bought into the culture and the why and the reason the company exists and the why, it's really hard, like really hard, and I'm probably only just getting really good now at trying to, 1, get it down into words, and then 2, get other people to really understand, what James & James was founded for and why we're here.
Control freak.
Yeah.
Are you a control freak, James?
It's been said before.
No, the reason I say that is because the vast majority of entrepreneurs, many entrepreneurs that I meet do give that persona, do give that impression that they are control freaks. Now, how have you found the experience of being less of a control freak, or dare I say, not being a control freak?
Well, so I think it's worth, in the first few years of running a company, and especially a complete startup, it's really important that you do get involved in every detail of everything, because actually you're still forming what the company does and how it works. So if you don't understand everything that's going on, then there's no one that really understands how all the bits fit together. But as you said, as you scale, that just becomes an annoyance, and also distraction on your time. You can't do everything. So for me, it's been about hiring great people. So hiring people that know more than me and our senior team about how we grow the company means that my job starts to become about this is where we're going, this is the direction and the vision which we talked about before, and then having the faith and the trust in them, knowing that they've done it before. But kind of, we've got this, James. We know how to get there. I'll build the plan. You just tell me where we're going, and that's a big change in kind of role, and a big learning. And there's a book I've been reading lots of self-help books, as you might call them. But one of the things is this phrase that really stood out, which is, the world's not out to get you. The world just is. And
so the world's not out to get you. The world just is.
It just exists, and so it's like you can control what you do, and I can explain the vision and the direction to other people, so that kind of influences what they do. But I can't control what they do, and I can't control what the world does around the business. So don't even try, because you're just going to get yourself wound up and frustrated. And I think I found myself most control freaks actually get really wound up and frustrated.
Right.
And letting go of all that stuff, just saying like, I'm gonna really think about what I'm doing in my day, and thinking about how I communicate that to influence other people and what they do in the company, and I'll just stop there, because then you don't get frustrated. That's the bit you can actually have real tangible differences. So one thing I've been looking at in last week really is going through your calendar and looking at where is it I'm adding real value, what is it I'm actually doing the things I enjoy that really help the business, and what are the things I'm doing where I'm being maybe too involved in a meeting that I don't really need to be in and could cut out.
Yeah.
So I've gone through this phase of writing down, what are all the things that a CEO should be doing. So that's networking, is talking to clients, getting feedback.
Yeah.
Really important things. Very easy to get separated from the rest of the people in the business.
Yeah.
Is going around saying, what's the biggest challenge in your day? What is it about the company that you think we could improve? Getting that feedback, and then you can start building that into the kind of the strategy and everything that's going on. And so you're less involved in the day. You kind of get more involved around the day-to-day, if that makes sense, and less involved in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
So for me, that's still a transition, I think, as we're still building up our senior management team.
Yeah.
It's still a transition I'm going through. But I think it's that real thought about how do you build, what is your job?
Yeah.
CEO is one of the few jobs in the business that doesn't really have job description.
Yeah.
I think our HR department definitely don't have one.
Yeah, really. So getting back to the control freak in the room.
Yeah.
The fact that when you were starting the business, you were the founder, when you decided something was going to be done, it was done.
Yeah.
Now let's fast forward to having, you said earlier, chairman, having a group of investors, having some, dare I say it, some real grown-ups in the place. How have you found, therefore, that whole shift from, to having to explain your thought process maybe sometimes? What's that been like?
So one, explaining your thought process sometimes, well, that might seem like, I've got to explain myself. Actually, explaining yourself means you start clarifying yourself to yourself, and then you actually understand what you're all talking about, which helps. One of the reasons we took investment was actually, we knew we had a lot of investment into this building, a lot of growth. Having someone there who's not as emotional about it as you are as a founder, that can look at those plans and kind of sanity check them and go, yeah, this does look like a really solid business plan. It's actually quite reassuring. It's quite reassuring to know that it's not just when you start the business, it's very much emotional. Let's just go try that, see what happens. When you start playing with bigger numbers, it starts to be, a little bit more like, I think this is. So having that checking is one of the things I really wanted, and the investments, been really good at that.
Yeah.
But you're right, there is some bureaucracy that comes with it. Our investors are part of a bank, so there's even more kind of bureaucracy and paperwork comes with that. So the part up to the deal happening, it's just ridiculous hours. There's so many people involved, lawyers,
stressful.
solicitors, really stressful. I went out for dinner with Sarah to apologise for all the hours I was working, and then
Sarah, your wife, right?
Yeah, my wife, and we spent the entire meal with me on the phone, going in and out the restaurant, on the phone to another lawyer about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So it's just endless. It's just endless. But that's quite stressful. Then you go kind of this honeymoon period when the deal's done, everyone kind of disappears, and it's all quite quiet.
Yeah.
And then that's really, I think, that's the important part, to build that relationship, because it was only really for me, not just understanding, what our investment directors, the certain board wanted, but really understanding what their bosses and their bosses' bosses wanted. Because it was only when I really understood what they were being asked of internally that I started to understand, why we were being asked these questions, or what we had to produce and why it's there. And once you really understand, what they need, and they understand how you work, then you can kind of work around the processes, and then it runs slick. So we're in a really good place, I think now. We're just both understanding how we work and getting on really well. But there's definitely a learning in that relationship of just understanding, every company's different, and they've got to learn how we work different to how we learn how investors work.
Yeah. Now, a big part of today talking to you has been growth.
Mm-hmm.
So, talking to a business that very, very quickly, 10 years you've been going, has grown from that to that. Okay. So, if it's okay, putting you on the spot, but have you got any gems, any nuggets that you could share?
I've got 3, and I've been thinking about these 3 on and off throughout the day, so I think I'm getting more clarity in my head. The first one is especially if you can see that growth, quite often you write a job description for hires based on the job we need done today. And I think if I could wind the clock back places, there's jobs that you can look at and you think, we should have written a job description for 3 years' time, and then maybe overhired. And that's really hard, actually, because a lot of people who are really good. Wow. Yeah, because you realise that you hire someone for a job, but then the job accelerates away so fast, and you have that difficulty of, can you train someone quick enough to fill that gap? And it's really tough, because you can't necessarily attract really, people at that level sometimes into a company, because they don't want to work in, you know, it's a logistics industry, you know, small business when you start, that you just won't get that calibre in. And so working with investors in a way, it says something about the company that you've just attracted different levels. You know, the people we're now hiring into our senior leadership team, they're not people we would have been able to attract sort of 2-3 years ago.
Right.
Just where the company's gone.
Right.
The second thing I'd say is that point again about vision. Like, you've got to be really clear about explaining to people. We've had so many times sitting in a room trying to work out mission and vision and values that it all starts to become corporate mumbo jumbo nonsense. And you kind of give up with it, but it is crucial. It's getting it to the point where you believe it. If you don't, as a CEO, believe in what you've written down, is not just close enough, but really is 100% what you believe in. It won't go through the company. But getting that so that everyone gets why we're here, what we do, the way we do things is critical.
Yeah.
And then the third bit, I think, is that journey of talking about, you know, the role of CEO. There is no job description, I've just mentioned. So where do you learn from? And it's having a network of people that can help, you know, reading, I think, and it's an emotional journey as well as a physical learning journey. You know, how do you spend the time to work on yourself and what you need to deliver to the company?
Yeah.
Because most people that are entrepreneurs are not CEOs, and there's a big difference between being a CEO and being an entrepreneur. So you've either got to learn very quick, or you've got to kind of get out, I guess. And a lot of people do both, don't they? But I think both are fine. But if you are going to stay in, then, you know, there is a lot to learn, I think.
Yeah, cool. Now, I'm not chatting you up, I'm not flirting with you, but you look really good for someone who is, you know, going through a lot of things at the moment, juggling a lot of balls and what have you. But yeah, you're looking well. You're looking like a man who's on top form. Any sort of tips, any things you can share in terms of how you're keeping yourself?
Well, we said earlier, I've been looking at the sort of work schedule, what I do at work.
Okay, right.
So when I come to work, you know, how am I being around people? What am I doing? Am I doing the things that I should be doing at work, or am I coming to work just to sit on a laptop in a corner? Because that's not really, that's not helpful as a CEO. I can do that at home. Yeah. So that's the first thing I've really looked at and trying to do that. I try and get exercise in every day. Try and schedule those times.
Every day?
Not every day. In theory, every day, but at least a couple of times a week.
Okay.
And I think it's important. That part of it. One thing I've really struggled with in that bit is that feeling, and again, it comes from that journey of being an entrepreneur, where when you're doing everything all the time and you're the doer of everything, actually some of the best things I come up with as a CEO, that you have ideas, oh, we could do this and stuff, they don't happen when you're working.
Yeah.
And actually, if you end up working all the time, you stop having all these great ideas. And it's allowing yourself to say, yeah, you know what, you know, I'm not going to go into work Monday morning. I'll turn up at 10, or you know, I'm gonna take Thursday afternoon off and go for a walk. Not because I'm lazy, and I've really struggled with this because there's this feeling like, oh, you know, I must do more hours than anybody else. I must be working, but actually, because some of the best stuff I come up with, you know, some of the ideas I've had around things that's got the company where we are. You know, I sat in the car park waiting for someone for 2 hours. Just sat in the car listening to radio. Just came up with this, and I had to get a notepad. It's like, oh, I can scribble this lot down. Just brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
And it comes when you least expect it.
Okay.
But if you're just sat in your inbox all the time, just in meetings, you don't get that space. So for me, that's been a real thing about, you know, how do I make sure that when I'm here, and I'm with people. When I'm sat trying to get my emails, I'm getting the emails done. But how do you also reserve that space?
Yeah.
Just to think.
Yeah.
For me, that's been really, you know, still trying to get there. Still have this client like, I've got to get to compete.
Yeah, awesome.
It's getting there.
You know, when I rocked up today, it was so good seeing at the front and putting that massive J on for your name. I was like, it's my friend, you know, James. He's absolutely living the dream. He's doing it. Do you look at, you know, as you've been driving in, have you been looking at going, wow?
Yeah, the first day they painted the fluorescent green on the outside, we did come and go,
strong choice,
lovely,
isn't it?
That was a strong choice. Yeah, so the letters are nearly taller than me now on the building, so we're very close. We're only about another 6 inches in it, we'll be there.
Okay, and I guess the final question that I love to ask you is, you know, you've been on an incredible journey. You look like a man that's enjoying himself. It looks like you're a man that's very much excited by the future. So I guess, what are you most excited about with the future? So
firstly, the next couple of months we're finishing off this office. So it's currently just sort of battleship grey and white at the moment. We've got a bright pink telephone box, a teal post box. We've got some post bikes and some sort of fun stuff going in. And that for me is really important about the brand. You know, we want to be sort of different within the industry. And then beyond that, when we first started the company, it was all about, we said tech, all about this cloud. How do you get e-commerce fulfillment into the cloud and get that data across multiple sites and everything? You know, we've got the US now, we've got a couple of sites, we kind of moved towards it, but for me now, we've got this, and this is the showroom. This is the place people come. We can have, a nice area to do tours and show people around. But it's then how do we replicate the showroom into a lot more different places, and how do we really then start to scale? So, you said, we've had fantastic growth to now, but for me, like, now is the beginning of that next chapter of the journey,
Wow.
which is, and we've been growing a company. Now we're going to grow lots of bits, lots of other little businesses in themselves from this one. So that, for me, that's really exciting.
I'm looking forward to shooting the next chapter then. For who knows what it'll be called by then. But James, I've got to thank you so much for allowing us to come here today and just see this awesome centre that fulfillment centre that you've gone and built. It's just obviously testament to a great idea, a lot of hard work, and just huge congratulations. I guess you don't ever pat yourself on the back, and I'm sure you wouldn't, but let us pat your back for you to say, well done. This is really
Thanks, John.
awesome stuff, and thank you so much. And we wish you all the very best in the months and years ahead.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Bye.